We'll discuss today a little bit about the mitzvah of Kidushin, the mitzvah of marriage. Is there a mitzvah of marriage? And the nature of the blessing we make under the chuppah, what is known as the Birkas Eresin, the bracha we make on the chuppah. The bracha we make, Asher Kiddushana mitzvah v'tzivenu al harayis, v'asa lanu es harusos, he prohibited an arusa, someone who is not fully married, v'hitil lanu es hanesuas, then we permitted it through chuppah with Kedushin. This blessing that's usually reserved for the rabbi, but it's anybody, it's the Mesader Kedushin, anyone who makes the blessing. So what type of bracha is it? And from the nature of the bracha, we'll figure out is there a mitzvah of getting married. Everyone agrees you have to get married because there's another mitzvah of pru of having children. And to have children, beheter, in a permitted way, one has to get married. So either way, the question isn't whether you have to get married or not. You have to get married even if it's not a mitzvah. It's just a preparatory mitzvah to having children. But what we're discussing tonight is whether Kiddushin itself, the actual getting married, what is the status of the Maisa Kiddushin. So the Gemara, so this is a famous machlokes, the Rambam and the Rush, on what is the nature of the mitzvah of Kiddushin. The Rambam writes that that Kiddushin is a mitzvah. Not only is having children a mitzvah, pru ravu, to be fruitful and multiply, but the act of getting married is also a mitzvah, ki yikach ish isha, when a man takes a woman. And therefore, he writes, so the bracha we make under the chuppah before the chassan gives the kala of the ring, that is a birkas ha-mitzvah. That is a bracha on the mitzvah of Kiddushin, and the Rambam writes, and this like by all other birkas ha-mitzvahs, we make the bracha first, and then we do the mitzvahs. The Gemara tells us in Psachim and Tav Zayin, we make our brachas over l'asiyasam, we make the brachas before we do the mitzvah. So too Kiddushin is no different. So that's the Rambam's opinion. The Rambam's opinion is that you make the bracha before all other mitzvahs. You make the bracha in Kiddushin, it's like you do before other mitzvahs. And the Rush and others say no. There is no mitzvah of Kiddushin. The mitzvah is having children. But in order to have children, you have to get married. It's only a hechsher mitzvah, as they say. And that's why the Rush writes, what would be a classical bracha we'd have? L'kadish es isha, or al mitzvahs Kiddushin. Why do we have this long language? V'sivanu al arayis, v'asa lanu es harusos, v'hita lanu es hanesuos. It's not the normal classical birkas ha-mitzvah. So therefore, they point out that because it's a birkas shevach v'hodah. It's a blessing of praise and thanksgiving on the institution of marriage, that God gave us the concept of marriage. But marriage itself isn't a mitzvah. So the bracha is a birkas ha-shevach, it's a bracha of praise. And according to the Rambam, it's a birkas ha-mitzvah. And my nafkamina, what is the practical difference? Whether I say it's a classical birkas ha-mitzvah, where it's a bracha of shevach v'hodah, of praise and thanksgiving. So one nafkamina perhaps is, when do you make the bracha? If it's a mitzvah, a birkas ha-mitzvah, so like all other birkas ha-mitzvahs, you make the bracha first. If it's a birkas shevach v'hodah, so there's no need to make it before. That after the incident happened, it's okay to make a birkas ha-shevach after also. Perhaps in terms of as well, if it's a birkas ha-mitzvah, then strictly speaking, the chassan should be making the mitzvah. The chassan should be making the bracha. And in fact, that's what the Noda Yehuda writes, that they used to make a bracha, the chassan used to do it, but then just like by Kriyas HaTorah, we have a designated reader, not to embarrass those who can't do it, so we, just like by Kriya Sato, we have a Baal Koreh, a designated reader, so too, now the minig is, the custom is that you usually get a rabbi or someone else to do it. But in theory, then, if it was a mitzvah bo yoter b'shlucho, it's better for you to do it, and then perhaps also make the bracha. But if it's a bircha shabbat v'odah, I guess anyone could do it. So the point being is, so that's the machlokas, the Rambam and the Rush, on whether Kiddushin is a mitzvah. According to the Rambam, it is hence it's a classical birchas mitzvah. According to the Rush, it's not. So the question is, according, and then we'll get to it, we'll have to answer, according to the Rambam, then if it's a birchas mitzvah, why isn't the classical birchas mitzvah l'kadesh es isha al mitzvahs kedushin? So we'll come back to that. Before we come back to that, there seems to be a third opinion on the matter. So the Rambam's opinion is you make the bracha before the kedushin. According to the Rush, you make the bracha after the kedushin. And according to the Rambam, you make it before, because it's like any other mitzvah, you make the bracha first. According to the Rush, it's a birchas hashabach, so you can make it after. The Ravid seems to have a middle of shita. The Rambam fundamentally agrees with the Rambam that it's a birchas mitzvah. However, he says you don't make the bracha until after the kedushin. So Bishlam, according to the Rambam, I see the consistency. According to the Rush, according to the Ravid, if it's a birchas mitzvah, why don't you make the bracha before the mitzvah? So that's what they explain, that since we're concerned, or it's a possibility, that the woman, the Isha, the would-be wife, that the woman you plan on marrying, she might say, no, I don't want to marry, I don't accept that, I'm not marrying you. And then the concern is it'll be a bracha levatola, it'll be a blessing or in vain, or as someone that fundamentally you can't, even if it wasn't a blessing in vain, fundamentally you can't make a bracha on something which is dependent on someone else. But either way, however the explanation, the Ravid says we're concerned that the woman's not going to accept it, and therefore it's a bracha levatola, hence you make it afterwards. It's similar to what the famous Chuvas Harashba, when it comes to tzedakah. When it comes to tzedakah, why don't we make a bracha before tzedakah? So many answers, but the Rashba writes, because we're concerned the ani might not accept it, and it will be a blessing in vain. So why not make the bracha after, give the tzedakah, and then make the bracha? So apparently there must be some other reason by tzedakah that we don't make the bracha even if the person does accept it. Either because it's something fundamentally believed, like the Beis Yosef writes, we don't make the bracha on bittul chametz, we make the bracha on the bedikas chametz, even though bittul is biblical, nullifying it in your heart is a biblical mitzvah, and searching for it's only rabbinical, but we make the bracha on the rabbinical because bittul believes sagi, because it's enough to fulfill your mitzvah of bittul chametz in your heart. So even though it's true you can't fulfill your mitzvah of tzedakah in your heart, but they say since tzedakah you fundamentally commit in your heart, so maybe it's enough. Or perhaps you'll have to come on to another reason why tzedakah you don't make a bracha, is because it looks like you're celebrating the fact that this person's an ani. Wow, let me make a bracha. I'm so happy you're an ani. When you shouldn't be happy someone's an ani, you should be hoping preventive medicine. No one should be poor. But if they are, so what can I do? So the different reasons why you'll have to come up with why tzedakah, you don't make the bracha afterwards. However, according to the Rambam, you have to explain why does it have the classical nusach of l'kadesh es isha or al mitzvahs kedushin. So perhaps we could suggest that it's a general question as well. Why don't we make a bracha on tzedakah? Why don't we make a bracha on gemilas chasadim in general, why don't we make a bracha? So the Rokeach and others write, because it's a mitzvah sichlis. It's a common sense law. Even, it's not just a Jewish thing, non-Jews give charity. Non-Jews do acts of loving kindness. So since anything, the only time you're permitted to make a bracha on a mitzvah, if it's recognizable that inherently it's a dvar mitzvah. But something that everyone else does, so Chazal never instituted a bracha. So really, the question is, getting married is a logical thing, or anyway, even if it's not logical, everyone does it. Gentiles as well get married. So the question is, why do we have a bracha at all? It's a mitzvah sichlis. So that's what perhaps the Rambam is getting at. Or we're getting at the Torah, the Chazal go out of the way to show the uniqueness of a Jewish marriage. There's Eresin, there's two parts, there's Eresin, there's the Suin, in contrast to a non-Jewish ceremony. So perhaps that's why we have a bracha on Kidushin, is because we want to make it very crystal clear that we're doing a Jewish type of marriage. And that's why you make the bracha, Makadish Amal Yisrael Yidei Chuppah, the Kiddushin. So that's the discussion, the Rambam and the Rush, in terms of the nature of the bracha. According to the Rush, it's a Birka Shevach V'Hodah. It's a bracha of praise and thanksgiving. According to the Rambam, it's a classical Birkas HaMitzvah, and much the practical difference. Whether you make the bracha before, according to the Rambam, you make the bracha before because it's a mitzvah, and according to the Rosh, you make it afterwards. And perhaps another nafkamina, shluchei mitzvah yotia mishlucho. If it's your mitzvah, you should do it yourself. You shouldn't send the messenger. But if it's not a mitzvah, so perhaps there's no Indian of you doing it. You might feel differently, but al pi halacha, it might not be an Indian of doing it yourself. You could do it, send a shliach, etc. But either way, we'll get back to that. So that's the question, whether the mitzvah of Kiddushin is a mitzvah, but everybody agrees there's a mitzvah of Pru Revu, which is one of the purposes of getting married, is to have children. Pru Revu v'kivshua. There's a mitzvah of having children to be fruitful and multiply and conquer the world. Conquer it by having children, inhabiting it, etc. And in fact, that's a discussion exactly, what exactly is the nature of the mitzvah of Pru Revu? What exactly is the mitzvah? Because even though the Minchas Chinuch writes, this mitzvah is result-oriented, the mitzvah is to have a boy and a girl. You have to die with having a boy and a girl. And if you don't get the mitzvah. So, in fact, that's why he has a famous shtickle in the first in mitzvah Aleph, while we don't apply why one can fulfill the mitzvah of Pru Revu through a mamzer. Even if you commit adultery, he's not recommending it, but if one commits adultery, you could still get your mitzvah. That's a discussion in the Yerushalmi Bavli on whether you can or not, but what's the issue, whether you say mitzvah b'avera, would be, according to the Minchas Chinuch, it's result-oriented. So you only say mitzvah b'avera if at the time you're fulfilling the mitzvah, you're involved in the avera. But here you did the avera 9 months ago, now you're doing a mitzvah now. You could be sitting and learning now. So therefore we don't apply the klal of mitzvah b'avera. And others say, Reb Moshe and others, there's a Tosfos in Baba Basra, the mitzvah is to be osek in Pru Revu. Obviously it's a mitzvah out of your control, you can't control it, so as long as you try to have children, that's the mitzvah. So there's a fundamental dispute among the Achronim, what is the nature of the mitzvah of Pru Revu? Is a result-oriented, like the Minchas Chinuch says, or is it to be osek? So what's the practical difference? So another one the Minchas Chinuch gives, and he gives this one in general, whether we apply the principle of mitzvah strichas kavana. So we know we have a general rule, it's a discussion in the Gemara, but we pass the mitzvahs require intent, at least on a biblical mitzvah. On a rabbinical mitzvah, perhaps not. The Gemara even says on a rabbinical mitzvah. So the question is, when I'm having relations with my wife, do I have to have in mind to fulfill my mitzvah of pru uravu? So according to the Minchas Chinuch, you wouldn't need kavanah. It's result oriented. The question is whether you have kids or not, and perhaps the artificial insemination, all these other ways. But according to the other opinion, if it's the involvement in pru uravu, then perhaps the mitzvah is the ma'isa bia, and therefore one would have to have kavanah. So those are some of the issues regarding the nature of the mitzvah of Kiddushin, the dispute between the Rambam and the Rosh, and the middle opinion of the Ravid. And then we have the Machlokes Minchas Chinuch Ramosha, on whether the nature of pru uravu is the result, as the Minchas Chinuch suggests, or as Ramosha suggests, it's to be osek in pru uravu. As the Gemara tells us in Shabbos, one of the three questions you'll be asked in Beis Shammai is, well, you osek in pru uravu, not whether you had the kids, because that's out of your control. Whether you are osek in pru uravu, and or not.